All right, everyone, we start off today talking about more election interference. Of course, the Secretary of State of Maine has unilaterally disqualified Trump from the primary ballots there, too, which, of course, means this will be appealed. It's probably, at this point, going to have to go before the Supreme Court, and I hope that they make the right decision, which is that insurrection ballot eligibility doesn't apply in the case of Trump because he was never convicted of anything. He was impeached by the House. That's an accusal. And it has nothing to do with an actual conviction in a court, which would actually fall under the provisions of Article 3. There was never any conviction. There was never any court case. None of the things that Trump is charged with in actual court proceedings have anything to do with the Insurrection Act anyway, or rather the provision against insurrection ballot eligibility within the Constitution. They have nothing to do with sedition. They have to do with business fraud and things like that, and overvaluating properties in New York and in Florida, which again is like, we've gotten to the point where a lot of the legal stuff that we're looking at is just like, it's my opinion, bro. Like, this is the Secretary of State of Maine, Shenna Bellows, who is a longtime leftoid partisan and hyper-Biden fan, which is not surprising. It's basically just a decision based on a whim. So there's no conviction. There's no actual attempt to indict Donald Trump under the auspices of insurrection in an actual court of law. All you've got is a very partisan congressional case in which he was acquitted by the U.S. Senate anyway. Since he was acquitted, that's that. That's the end. He was not guilty of insurrection. He was not found guilty for a reason. And by the way, no state Supreme Court or federal court charged him under those auspices because they knew that they would never make the charge stick. Because if you listen to Trump's full speech and you look at the timeline of his actions on January 6th, it's quite clear that he didn't plan for what happened to actually happen. He never incited a riot. He never encouraged people to overthrow the government or anything like that. It just never happened. Some people have a false narrative in their minds based on selectively edited clips of him speaking and things like that. But that's not real. You're supposed to convict somebody based on the facts, not based on opinion. This is effectively the equivalent of the Secretary of State taking up the singular and unilateral power to interfere with the U.S. election at the primary level based solely on opinion. We've seen this, the Colorado case was the same thing. We've seen this in gun control cases recently. No case law being cited, opinions being issued, but they're entirely vacuous. Supreme Court needs to weigh in on that too under the auspices of Bruin. This is an actual attack, by the way, on democracy. This is an attempt to deprive people of the ability to nominate an individual who they happen to favor based solely on the opinion of a Secretary of State. This isn't even the state Supreme Court that's weighing in Maine's case. So Maine joining Colorado and trying to denigrate democracy. It's funny how the people who shout about defending democracy are the ones that are trying to prevent democratic functions at this time. Again, this is a primary. This is effectively run by a political party. A political entity is little more than an organized corporation that seeks donations and organization to get somebody nominated so they can potentially be in a political role. This isn't even the general election, which would fall more broadly under the purview of state Supreme Court action, etc. Although state Congresses tend to have an outsized role in that, you did have a recent Supreme Court decision that also bounces some power to the courts with districting and so forth. That's more general election. But this is the primary. This would be like saying, under this legal auspice, by the way, this could open up a can of worms. Now you've got a situation where a state Supreme Court or a Secretary of State in a red area, so West Virginia or something, could unilaterally issue a decision, again, not based on a conviction, not based on case law, not based on anything closely approximating a proper interpretation of the 14th Amendment, and could simply bar Biden, for example, from the ballot. Well, it's this court's opinion, or this is the opinion of the Secretary of State of Alabama or something. In my opinion, Joe Biden is ineligible. Well, why is Joe Biden ineligible? Well, he's been ruled against in multiple Supreme Court cases on the basis of attempting to pass unconstitutional ordinances. For instance, federal workplace mandates for Hong Kong. I can't mention it on a YouTube video. Well, I probably can because it's just news, but I'm not willing to take the risk. Race-based farm aid payouts during the lockdown period. race-based restaurant payouts for restaurant owners. These were shot down. Dereliction of his duty, and the oath that he swore to defend the Constitution and the people of the United States, one of those primary federal government roles, especially executively, being to guard the border. Right now, Joe Biden is threatening to sue the state of Texas. Maybe Texas should return the favor and say, well, because he's attempting to abuse our state's rights, he's ignoring the 10th Amendment, his oath of office, he's ignored the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, basically all of the other amendments. Because of the fact that he's so derelict in his duty, he effectively falls under the insurrection provision because he is effectively waging war on the United States. So through sheer dereliction. Now, this would not be a properly understood constitutional and proper understanding of the function of of Article 3. It would be ludicrous. So too is this. There was never a conviction for insurrection. In fact, there was never any insurrection to convict for. That was made up out of thin air by the Democratic Party for political reasons and their legacy media allies, pushing a false narrative in which a fiery but mostly peaceful protest was an insurrection because a handful of the people there actually did plot an organized attempt to stir up discord and weren't just there to take selfies, although most people were, in coordination with Trump, whose speech supposedly caused that to happen. Again, if you actually listen to the full thing, no reasonable person would interpret it any way other than, hey, go and protest in front of the Capitol. Yeah, go peacefully march and cooperate with the police, and then he very quickly, once fighting did begin, he told them to stand down. That doesn't sound like someone who wants to overthrow the government. If anything, if he wanted to overthrow the government, he'd be like, hurrah, boys, yeah, get 'em good, yeah, fly them battle flags high. We taken the Capitol, we taken the whole mall, and everyone else pour into D.C., quick, erect the barricades, a las barricadas. That's what you would expect from an insurrection attempt. But no person would be batshit enough to think that it would work. 100,000 people wouldn't be able to accomplish it, let alone the few thousand people that actually entered the Capitol that day, out of a group of many tens of thousands of people that were there to hear Trump speak. A minority of them marched. Most of them immediately went home. They saw Trump speak, they weren't interested in marching, maybe they milled around on the lawn there, or they went home. Some of them were somehow still charged under various laws for simply having listened to Trump speak. People thought that Alex Jones was fomenting insurrection when he took up a bullhorn and explicitly told people to cut it out and that it was a bad idea and not get anywhere near the Capitol. He was not listened to. I think I made a video beforehand warning clankers not to attend that day's events. I'm hoping that no clankers got locked up for having been dumb enough to actually march on the Capitol, because apparently being near the Capitol at that time means you're a felon. Again, there were people that were 10 miles away that were somehow still charged with crimes, and it's not exactly clear by what legal purview there is any possibility of a conviction, but somehow they found a way, again, for political reasons. But Donald Trump never triggered anything. Then a minority of that group broke off and attacked the Capitol. Yeah, it definitely escalated into a riot. Several people died, mainly protesters. But it wasn't an insurrection. So even if you thought that Trump was responsible, what's the definition of an insurrection? Apparently that's entirely open-ended and up for interpretation by secretaries of state at the state level. I didn't know that was a power that they had. It's a farce. This is the literal attack on democracy. And we must do all we can to rebuff it and re-elect Donald Trump anyway to really rub it in their faces. That's about all. Peace out.